What's going on, guys? I'm Tyler, and I'm here to let you know that The Suicide Squad is not that good a title and is no perfect movie. It's better than Suicide Squad, don't get me wrong, but still no perfect movie. But in any case, this time around, Task Force X has Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn, Idris Elba as Bloodsport, John Cena as Peacemaker, Daniela Melchior. Not sure how to pronounce her name right. I do like that a lot of unknown actors are in the cast. As Ratcatcher 2, we got Polka Dot Man, we got Sylvester Stallone as King Shark, Joel Kinnaman and Viola Davis are back as Amanda Waller and Colonel Rick Flag, among many other new team members who are sent to the fictional country of Corto Maltese to destroy a Nazi laboratory holding this giant alien starfish called Starro the Conqueror, who can clone and mind control anything that it latches onto. Now, I gotta be honest, when I first heard that James Gunn was hired to direct this movie after getting fired from Guardians 3, I thought it was just Warner Brothers trying to stick it to Disney and Marvel over the bullshit decision that they made. Because, yeah, honestly, firing James Gunn over shit that you guys already knew, let alone a dirty joke, was just a fucking stupid decision. I mean, it sums up just how consistent Disney is with hiring their employees. Welcome to Disney. If you make a dirty joke or a political opinion our audience hates, you're out of here. If you kill someone with your car by driving in the wrong lane, you are going to be the star of our most popular movie, playing a character whose entire arc is about discovering that, no, I didn't actually kill that one person. Fucking nice, right? You kill someone by drunk driving, you get to be a driving instructor, and you'll be memed forever. I love that Disney treats words and language more seriously than actual physical harm and violence. Thank you to my fellow fucking millennials for enforcing that bullshit philosophy in life. But, yeah, despite all of that, when I heard all the positive feedback from the cast and crew, certain audience members who had already seen it, watching all the behind-the-scenes footage that showed just how practical of a movie it was, I really started to buy into the fact that this could have been an old-school war movie that just has a modern-day superhero twist to it. And for the most part, it definitely has that, but I gotta say, you guys hyped it up a little too much. It is a good movie, don't get me wrong, and it is significantly better than Suicide Squad, even though, in the grand scheme of things, this has the exact same plot, but it's actually a lot more of a mess. And sometimes, because it is a chaotic mess full of R-rated, unfiltered characters, that can be a good thing. But it's not always a mess in a good way, and I would argue that this is far from James Gunn's best work. And in order for people to understand where I'm coming from, I'm going to start off with the flaws of this movie first. The big one for me was that the action scenes were a huge, huge fucking letdown for me, and that was the thing that I was excited for the most. A hard R superhero movie in, like, the 150 plus budget, something that was bigger than any Deadpool or Blade movie, that's something to be excited for. And I gotta say, the R-rated violence is incredibly fucked up and gory. It's actually grosser than Joker, both Deadpools, all three Blades combined. It is fucking brutal. It's got a blood and gut count up to a Saw movie level, and a lot of people are going to say that it fits with the war movie tone, which it absolutely does. People die in wars in a definitely unglamorous way, especially if you get eaten by a walking, talking shark. But here's the thing. Why King Shark had to gnaw on someone's head for 5 minutes straight, why we had to get an insert shot of a guy's organs once he got stabbed, why we had to see someone's face get blown up and then held onto for more than 30 seconds so that a bird can chew on that person's guts and then choke to death on it. I don't know why we needed any of this stuff. Most of the violence in this movie serves for no reason other than shock value, and for that reason, it took me out of the movie just based on how pointless some of these kills were. And something that pissed me off right from the opening scene is that the kills themselves are usually the only thing you actually can see during the fights. James Gunn makes this weird decision of filming half the fights throughout the first and second act of the movie in the dark, and he keeps changing the camera angle on every punch and gunshot, so I lost track of who was doing the killing, who was where on the battlefield, and it made absolutely no sense. The fight scene of Harley Quinn in the dress, where she's fighting all of these soldiers, that is the best fight in the movie. Not because it's Harley Quinn fighting, although that part definitely does help. It's because you can see Margot Robbie doing her own stunts. You can see how she's doing them. And more importantly, there actually is fight choreography, because the other thing, and this is more of a personal nitpick, I'm not downgrading the movie for this, is that a lot of the fight choreography itself is really just people standing around going, and if the violent aftermath is good enough for you, that's totally fine, but I've gotten bored of that. I want to see people getting sliced up with knives. I want to see people getting bludgeoned to death with stuff like bats, pipes, hammers, stuff that we get a little bit in the finale, but even in the John Wick movies, it's not just people going, it's people going, flip. As over-reliant on gun fu and judo throwing as John Wick is, at least they found a way to make it a little more energetic. This didn't have that feel for me, and it was pretty disappointing on that end. And the other issue I had was how the pacing affects so many members of the ensemble cast. Half the characters disappear as quickly as they're introduced, and even when they do get a scene that focuses entirely on them, it goes on for so much longer than it needs to. It affects the amount of character development on certain actors and characters over others, and it felt pretty jumbled. Harley, especially, is barely even in the movie for the first half, and it isn't until maybe the last 30 to 40 minutes that she really does interact with the other members of the team. And look, which I find very interesting, because the big complaint everyone had about Birds of Prey was that she wasn't a team member interacting with the other ladies. So one would think that they would improve upon that here, right? I mean, you could make the argument that, yeah, she was already in Suicide Squad, she already had her own spinoff, maybe she should take a step back. Doesn't change the fact that she is still the most entertaining character in the franchise, let alone in the Suicide Squad movies, and that's still a dumb decision, but whatever. Okay, I'll contend with that for a second, but what about returning cast members who got the shaft the first time around and have a chance to improve, like Colonel Flag? Joel Kinnaman gives a much more nuanced and compassionate performance that makes them actually give a shit about the other members of the team, and it felt so rewarding. I like that James Gunn offered him a more sympathetic side that would have had more of an emotional impact if we actually saw his best moments on screen, as opposed to the other team members stumbling upon him and saying, hey, look, guys, I found this incredibly forgettable team of freedom fighters who will help us out. Because that's the other thing. A lot of press that I've seen in regards to reviews for this movie are going about, oh, this is a parody, this is a critique of American imperialism and how we're looking at the sins of our past. And I'm just sitting there going, really? We're going this route with the Suicide Squad? Which, look, don't get me wrong, I know that this movie is about imperialism and its flaws. I mean, one of the villains of the movie is Amanda Waller. If a government agent is in a movie telling a government-assembled team to go to this one country, destroy evidence, we obviously know that the evidence is going to be incriminating against America. So for one, there's no surprise, there's no element of suspense to that already. And the other big problem is the other freedom fighters, the citizens of Corto Maltese, the dictators running the country. What were their names? I mean, granted, we know one of their names because it led to easily the funniest argument in the entire movie, where someone dies and they go, oh, poor him. What was his name again? Seriously? You didn't know his name? I didn't even know he was here. What I like is that he was going around the entire movie without a fucking gun. I love that nobody questions that, but that's the big problem. We don't spend enough time with the members of this country, so we don't really feel the stakes that we're going through. We just see some fake viral videos that show a lot of terror and oppression that remind us of Cuba and Venezuela, countries that, as we're going on with this right now, actually do need our help and need and are asking and demanding things that certain individuals are not telling us about. I'm gonna put a video in the description below because her response to this is just fucking stupid and she should know better, but... Okay, the minor rant aside, the fact that we don't know anything about this country, therefore we don't really give a shit about the imperialism, and plus the American government is always the villain in everything now, so there's no element of surprise to it. What about brand new characters who are being introduced in this very movie? Like Peter Capaldi as Finker, or Michael Rooker as Savant. Characters who, from their introductions, are built up as being extremely important, but the end results that they get as characters feels inconsequential and anticlimactic. If you were to write them out, I don't think anything would have changed in this movie whatsoever. Also, minor thing as I'm like 11 minutes into this video, this is something my sister pointed out after we watched the movie. Whenever you go into a theater, there are always those press interviews by actors describing their experience of the film. Every actor that described what a genius James Gunn was on set and how he encouraged them to come up with new ideas. Literally every actor who participated in that interview died in the opening fight scene. Gee, wonder why they had so many glowing things to say about them. And also, not enough of Sean Gunn as Weasel. Like, Weasel was fucking hilarious. I know it's a one-joke character, but I wanted to see more of that. So, here's the thing. Despite all of my grievances that amounted to about 11-12 minutes of this video, I gotta be honest, I was still smiling and laughing my ass off throughout the majority of the movie just because of the Suicide Squad. They have terrific comedic chemistry with each other. There are so many likable characters that actually do get fleshed out, developed, and are extremely sympathetic and heartfelt. And that's all because of James Gunn's admittedly clever writing and his knack for being able to direct actors on comedic delivery and timing, which is good because this has some of the lamest material he's ever written and wouldn't have worked if he was so good at directing actors and if the actors he'd chosen were actually talented. By far, the best character in the movie is Idris Elba as Bloodsport. He definitely has the dramatic side to him that I'm going to get into later, but he really surprised me in how good he was with comedy, especially this back-and-forth rivalry he has with a fellow soldier, John Cena, in Peacemaker. I could have watched the two of them bicker for an hour and a half, and it never would have lost any steam. The two of them were just on fire the entire time. And I love the chemistry that Elba has with Daniela Melchior, again, not sure how to pronounce her name, as Ratcatcher, because out of all the team members, Ratcatcher is easily the most wholesome. And when we find out her incredibly tragic backstory, we realize that she's not a criminal because she wants to make a career out of it, more because she was stuck in some severe and unfortunate circumstances that gets Elba to see the tragic and more sympathetic side to her, and he forges this very unique father-daughter dynamic between the two of them, where he's willing to go out of his way to break any rules, risk his own life, risk possible exposure on their mission in order to help her out, and also to help out other people that he never would have cared about before. He does kind of recycle the father-daughter struggle that Will Smith had in the original, but it's done a hell of a lot better because he realizes if he can patch things up by forging a relationship with this one team member, he knows what to do when he gets a lighter sentence and gets out of Bel Rev. That way he can actually improve upon the relationship he has with his own daughter. John Cena actually surprised me at how legitimately good he was at comedic delivery. I've never liked him as an actor before. And I also like that as likable as he is for being casually and obliviously despicable towards anything that's not American, you actually do kind of understand why he believes that killing violent people and keeping very tragic secrets from the world can be a good route to resolving peace. And it actually makes him a surprisingly decent villain. Nothing complex by any means, but still an intimidating and threatening presence, because when you do see the rivalry between him and Bloodsport about who's the better soldier or mercenary, dude's unbelievably efficient at killing people. I don't want to spoil the backstory behind what makes Polka Dot Man definitely a surprising character, because you hear his name at the beginning and everyone goes, what does he do? Throw polka dots? But weirdly enough, throwing polka dots does have his advantage. And the backstory he has is just as, if not maybe a peg more tragic than Ratcatcher, but the element of comedy is the thing that you remember the most about him, because without spoiling anything, let's just say he sees people as the person he hates most in life, and it leads to a lot of hilarious moments when he's fighting others and he's unleashing all of this suppressed rage that he's been keeping for years. I never thought I would say Sylvester Stallone was efficient at playing a naive, innocent, dumb, gentle giant, but his soft-spoken line delivery made me feel so much for him. He was definitely the Groot of this movie, but he has so many outsider characteristics that also make him up to par with Sloth from the Goonies, especially with the way that he interacts with Ratcatcher. Ratcatcher is the only one who doesn't see him as this mutant shark or whatever. She actually sees him as a person, and she's willing to forgive the fact that he almost tried to eat her on impulse, because she knows that he doesn't know any better. She knows that he has a lot to learn, so she offers this element of patience and understanding that, again, contributes a lot to Idris Elba seeing the good in her and realizing that he can inhibit some of those good traits if he gives himself a chance. Also, as sidetracked as she is, Margot Robbie still absolutely kills it as Harley Quinn, especially her first kill in the movie, where she gives this hilarious extended monologue about how much she's learned from her relationships with the Joker, among many other people, but she still shows that self-centered side that wants any affection whatsoever, no matter how sinister or how selfish it may be. And it led to probably the funniest line in the entire movie, the best fight scene that I said before, that films things, again, from her perspective, and the way it was overblown was absolutely hilarious. And even though the visual style that James Gunn incorporates into this film wasn't as old school as I thought it would be, like, he keeps building it up as an old school war movie, but a lot of it is filmed in generic modern-day standard coverage that looks almost as bland as the way David Ayer filmed the original Suicide Squad. One thing he does good is that he divides each portion of the film into these chapters, kind of like a comic book. He structures the narrative of the film in a much more non-linear way than before, where the opening fight scene, so many people die, so many people get captured, you just sit there and wonder, wait, what's going on? And then it'll flash forward and then flash forward backward, and then you realize, oh, this happened before this crucial moment, and I'm doing a really crappy job at describing it, but the way he structures the narrative and plays certain events before and after each other does heighten the suspense. It does make me feel scared for characters, even when I know that they're going to die, because I don't want to see them get hurt under any circumstances. And for every flaw that he has in this movie, he does make up for it by crafting one of, if not the most practical superhero movies I've ever seen. He films fight scenes in actual locations, when you do see the fight choreography, because once in a while you do, especially during this climax that feels like it's a half hour long and has 3 different endings. That part was kind of annoying. Real locations, the actors are all doing their stunts, the choreography is gritty and brutal for how realistic it is, especially with how much blood is splattered through these blood hoses and squibs that are planted on the actors, that for the most part looked legitimately good. The practical effects are blended in with CGI so spot on. King Shark's texture and design looked absolutely great, and he felt tangible compared to the rest of the movie. And I also like that Gunn actually does play with multiple different genres at once without it ever feeling phoned in or too out of place. This isn't just a black comedy that also happens to be a war film. There are elements of a spy thriller where Waller is debriefing some of her co-workers that also have this office style of comedic banter, which was pretty nice. There's a lot of moments of well-fleshed-out human drama that I mentioned before. And the climax I mentioned that establishes Starro as the main villain actually feels more up to par with a zombie movie than anything else. It was a better zombie movie than Army of the Dead. And the way he balances out these tones led to the more entertaining and consistently chaotic aspects about the Suicide Squad, because at the end of the day, it's still a problem that this movie is chaotic, and I gotta be honest, I'd rather watch Birds of Prey over this any day. Yeah, the girls rule, boys drool message was tacked on and completely unintelligent. Yeah, it wasn't really a team movie, as if The fantabulous emancipation of one Harley Quinn seriously didn't give that away, guys. I mean, come on. At least Kathy Yan showed us the action. At least Kathy Yan gave us a variety of different fighting styles that made the R-rated violence feel a lot more impactful and unpredictable, creative and energetic. At least the characters, as little as they were in the movie, still made an impression. They were still memorable, entertaining, and interesting as individuals, let alone as a team member. At least it was overall just consistent in its style and its story. At least the story itself was simple and easy to follow. At least the villain was easy to remember, because the human dictators, as I said before, I don't know who they are. I don't fucking care. And yeah, that's the thing. Like, whenever this movie backfires because of how unpredictable and unfiltered it is, it can be painful to watch. But when it is hilarious, when the actors do have chemistry, when the actors are visibly doing their own stunts, and when they're clearly having a good time, I was laughing my ass off. I was smiling consistently, despite how long I've ranted about the flaws. It really has more to do with how people have been overhyping this movie. But nevertheless, I still had a good time with The Suicide Squad, and I'm going to give it a 3.5 out of 5. Guys, thanks as always for watching. If you have seen The Suicide Squad, let me know in the comments below what you thought of it. Feel free to disagree with most of the stuff I've said before. I can handle it. And once again, feel free to click the video description below to see what's going on with Cuba right now. They're in a really tough situation right now and can definitely use all the support that they need. In any case, let me know what you think in the comments below. Be sure to like and subscribe, stay tuned for more reviews, and be sure to check out my other videos at Sharp Edge Cinematics. Take care.